Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. We've been reading from Canto 6, Divine Collection, Protection, and we'll be beginning chapter 2 today, Ajamil saved by Vishnu's messengers. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Ajamil's eyes bulged in fear. He tried to fight the Yamadutas, but there was no strength in his body. The Vishnudutas stepped forward, their weapons at the ready. Stop! The Yamadutas growled. We have answered your questions. Now it is time to take the sinner to hell. Verse 1 of chapter 2. One of the Vishnudutas lowered his weapons and smiled. He turned to his companions. Brothers, we need not fight Yamraj's servants. Let us use logic and scriptural knowledge to resolve this situation peacefully. Verse 2. He turned to the Yamadutas. We are here to uphold religion, and yet you are trying to introduce irreligion into our assembly. This is very distressing to us. The Yamadutas looked baffled, but not the ones upholding religion. The Vishnuduta continued, you are supposed to preserve religious principles, but you irreligiously seek to punish a sinless person. Confused and indignant, the Yamadutas loosened their grip on the rope. Why are you falsely accusing us of irreligion? Verse 3. The Vishnuduta calmly continued, your master Yamaraj is a qualified leader because he acts like a loving father, maintainer and protector of the citizens. He gives expert advice and scriptural instructions to everyone without discrimination. As his servants, it behoves you to follow his example. Instead, because of polluted intelligence, you are prone to partiality, seeking to punish an innocent person. If you, the guardians of religion, act so irreligiously, where will the poor citizen turn for protection? The Yamadutas stood agape. What did these unusual personalities mean? Verse 4, the Vishnuduta went on, if we allow you to punish the blameless man, then other leaders will follow your example and wrongly seek to harm those who are faultless. They will cite your behavior as the justification. Verses 5 and 6, most people lack a true grasp of scriptural knowledge, thus they cannot properly discriminate between religion and irreligion. Following your example, they will punish guiltless people who trust them. No leader who is kind-hearted and worthy of his position should punish a person who, in good faith, trusts us. Trust him. Ajamil is not innocent, protested the Yamadutas. He is a sinful wretch who deserves punishment. Verse 7, the Vishnuduta scoffed. Nonsense. Ajamil has already atoned for all his sins he committed in this life and in millions of previous lives. How? When? Asked the bewildered Yamadutas. Did you not hear him chant Lord Narayan's holy name in a helpless mood? Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense. Therefore, he is now pure and eligible for liberation. Verse 8, another Vishnuduta said, even prior to this incident, Ajamil was regularly chanting Narayan's holy name. The Yamadut said, that was years ago. For the last 60 years, he has given up all religious principles and repeatedly committed the most heinous sins. The Vishnudutas replied, you obviously have not been doing your job properly, otherwise you would know that Ajamil has repeatedly chanted Narayan's name for the last 5 years. He is constantly telling his son, Narayan, come here, and so forth. Even though calling his son, he repeatedly uttered the 4 syllables Na, Ra, Ya, Na. Simply by doing this, he expiated the sinful reactions of millions of life. The Yamadutas shook their heads in disbelief. He has committed every kind of sin. He betrayed and abandoned his elderly parents and chaste wife and has never atoned for any of these sins. Verses 9 and 10, one of the Vishnudutas said, Listen and try to understand. The chanting of Lord Vishnu's holy name is the best expiation for thieves, drunkards, murderers, sexmongers. Chanting Vishnu's holy name, any sinful person can attract the Supreme Lord's attention, who then 11. No Vedic ritualistic ceremony is as powerful as chanting Vishnu's holy name. Such chanting reminds one of Vishnu and awakens his dormant devotional service to him. No atonement process does this. One of the Yamadutas asked, why are other types of atonement ineffective? Verse 12, a Vishnuduta said, a good question. The problem is that after performing any other type of atonement, one's mind will again turn to materialistic activities. Therefore, anyone who truly wants liberation should focus on chanting Vishnu's name or discussing his qualities and pastimes. A Yamaduta spoke out. The same happens to those who chant Vishnu's name. They also sin again. See this Ajamil. In his youth, he daily chanted Narayan's name, but then his mind became attracted to a prostitute. So what is the difference? Vishnuduta replied, as soon as someone glorifies Krishna's name, fame or attributes, the Lord takes it upon himself to purify that person's heart. For this reason, the Lord inspired Ajamil to call his youngest son Narayan. Verse 13, since Ajamil helplessly and loudly called out Narayan at the time of death, he is now free of all sinful reactions. Therefore, O servants of Yamaraj, you cannot take him to your master for punishment in hell. Still bound in the Yamaduta's ropes, Ajamil had been listening to the exchange in astonishment. He shivered in relief when he heard that Vishnuduta say that he would not go to hell. The Yamadutas were indignant. He was not calling Lord Narayan, they objected. He was calling his son. Verse 14, one of the Vishnudutas smilingly replied, try to understand. Anyone who chants Vishnu's holy name is immediately freed from the reactions of unremitted sins. It does not matter if he chanted the holy name to indicate someone or something, or if he chants as a joke, or of musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. Anyone who has carefully studied the Vedas knows this, but the Yamadutas tried to object. Verse 15, one of the Vishnudutas sighed, let me spell it out to you. It does not matter how sinful one may be. If he chants Lord Hari's holy name at the time of death, it immediately absolves him from having to go to hell. Even if he dies in an unfortunate accident like falling from a building or being bitten by a snake or high fever or in fight, it is irrelevant. If he utters Hari's name, he will not go through these channels. If he utters Hari's name, he will not go to hell. Verse 16, the Yamaduta snorted, this cannot be right. Our master told us severe sins are atoned with severe punishment and light sins with light punishment. How everything must commensurate. This rascal Ajamil has performed the worst imaginable sins. Not once or twice, but repeatedly, he must receive a heavy chastisement. They moved toward Ajamil, but the Vishnudutas stepped between them with readied weapons. One of them said, what you say is normally true. The exception is that chanting of Vishnu's holy names, this easy atonement vanquishes the effects of sins regardless of heavy or light. This easy atonement vanquishes the effects of all sins regardless of heavy or light. How it seems painful, so unfair. The Vishnudutas remained One of them said, what you say is normally true. The exception is that the chanting of Vishnu's holy names, this easy atonement vanquishes the effects of all sins regardless of heavy or light. How it seems so unfair. Verse 17, the Vishnudutas remained patient. One of them replied, listen to us. Other forms of atonement can neutralize the reaction of one's sins, but they cannot uproot material desires. The cause of sin from the heart, however, serving Lord Vishnu frees one even from material desires. Verse 18, in the form of his name, he burns to ashes without fail all the sinful reactions of anyone who chants it even once more. As fire burns dry grass to ashes, Krishna burns to ashes the sins of anyone who chants his holy name. The Avdutas shook their heads in disbelief. One proclaimed, "How can chanting unknowingly save him?" He would understand that he was actually praying to Narayan. Study. The Avdutas shook their head in disbelief and proclaimed, "How can chanting unknowingly save him? We should understand if he was actually praying to Narayan. Surely you are exaggerating." So here onwards, from verse 19 onwards, we'll be reading next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.